We on?
Yes.
Good morning, afternoon, or midnight, depending on where you are. I'd like to start off by making an apology, and Evan should also apologise for the fact I haven't written an article for about 4 or 5 months, have I, Evan?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Why weren't you nagging me? Well, there were reasons for that, ladies and gentlemen. We had a lot of planning involved in a conference at Bundaberg, and I spent the last 2.5, 3 months putting together a. Oh,
Sorry, just checking.
good.
It is
Okay,
working.
thank you, Evan. Right, this is a normal. Ruth, what's
There we go.
good? This is going particularly well. Stop it, Evan. Oh, right. Okay, where were we?
Yeah, sorry. Facebook's changed the rules. It's impossible to stream into groups these days. So, yeah, that's me checking on that.
Okay.
But anyway, yes.
Right.
It's been a while. You've
Yeah.
been busy. We've both been busy with a conference in Bundaberg.
And then
we've both been doing books as well.
And we had a major problem with a book that's written by 11 people, and there's all sorts of issues with the way it was put together, and it's taken an eternity to put. But anyway, long and the short of it is I've got 3 articles. I was going to be 2, but it turned out to be 3 articles I am ready to write up, and the first one's been done, hasn't it? Evan's been stuck alongside here.
I'll just put the link up for everyone.
Okay, thank you. So what we'll do is we'll talk first about the online presentation we're doing on Sunday.
Right.
And with that one, what's happened is we've got James Wood back from China, but this time we actually have him back literally, don't we? Like into Evan's place.
Yeah, over there.
What we did was we decided to sit around the table and we filmed James talking about the sites he's seen and what's taking place in China. And for the first time ever, we did stray into politics, didn't we, Evan?
We did.
Which is a no-go zone. We don't talk about
not
politics.
To do that, but it happened this time.
It's not my fault. It's more Evan's fault again than mine, but we'll blame him too. And also James. It's James's fault. Because he comes from China. Well, he's working in China at the moment. And we've been, of course, you can't miss it. We hear all the mainstream commentaries about how everyone in China is evil and it's a horrible place and a pox upon them all. Well, it turned out he's been living there for quite some time. And it turned out that none of the things we've been told about China and how they function and how they work is actually right. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to political issues, there is something in that. They are very repressive when it comes to you not being along the same political agenda as they are. But as for anything else, fair income, the amount of issues and problems we've had in this country with our archaeology, and the fact that he can go anywhere and film anything, not even being Chinese, but being Australian, and nobody hassles him, no one causes any problems, was quite a shock to us, wasn't it, Evan? After what we've been through, he's been through nothing compared to that. He's welcome. He can film what he wants and they don't chase him up. And I just felt that even though we do stray into politics a couple of times, it strikes me we've been, how can I put it? I know this is going to sound bizarre to say that the government may have misled us a bit and not quite told the truth as it is.
Bit of a shock. Horror.
But we did decide to stray into there occasionally. So that's one part. But there will be a lot of talking about archaeology in China as well. And we sat around the table with a few rocks, talked about them too, and we're going to put that up. We will be talking about our new article, which is quite unusual because we haven't done that for quite some time. And in it, we'll be looking at a gentleman by the name of Lawrence Hargraves, who was on the $20 note between 1966 to 1994 and then kicked off. And I'm still not sure.
Yeah,
Oh, well, we are sure why, aren't we, Evan?
We looked into that, didn't we?
We looked into that. And what's really interesting about Hargraves, who's many things, but he was also an archaeologist as well, is that, well, how can I put this? He was of the opinion the Spanish were in Australia in the 1500s. And I've got to make the point. He made a discovery in 1910, 1912, one of the two, I'm not sure, but one of those. And it followed in the heels of the work that Cardinal Moran and Frederick Slater were doing in Port Curtis, where they believed the Chinese were there. Now, what's interesting with
Spanish.
the Spanish were there. Thank you for checking what I'm saying, because half the time I don't even know myself. What's interesting in that with that is that Hargraves wasn't talking about Port Curtis where they were. And it's interesting because the paper that Moran and Slater and others put out was vilified by some, but in 1923, 11 years after it was put out, 13 years after it was put out, in the Sydney Morning Herald, there was an article that referred to that paper as a brilliant treatise. And we found that quite surprising because everyone had said what Cardinal Moran was saying and what Slater was saying was a load of rubbish, but that's not actually the case. Some people said something differently. And then what happens is all in the middle, Moran died in 1910 and 1912, Hargraves finds the Spanish insignia, Spanish story, Spanish boats engraved on the headlands at Bondi. Now, we knew about that, but what actually happened was we asked Harry's from the Lifesaver from Bondi Rescue if he could go and find this weird thing. We thought it was on the side of a cliff, didn't we?
Yeah.
Because Ben Buckley's is about, 150 metres above the sea. And we said, Harry's, if you can find it, we'll come and have a look. Well, he did find it. And there's a picture of it now. That's the engraving with two boats.
Hargraves
diagram of what we saw. It turned out it's straight in the middle of everything. It's in the middle of a golf course. It's the only rock platform there. It was originally at some stage fenced, wasn't it?
Yes.
And there were metal posts. I think there's one metal post still in there, isn't there? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was fenced off, and then it was left open because I think around the time he put that out, he really got attacked. Big time.
Yeah, unsurprisingly, he listed who actually attacked him.
Yeah, and it was all the same suspects that were attacking Moran and were attacking Slater. It was the same group. And it was the same vilification as before. They were really getting ripped into. But ladies and gentlemen, if you go through the details and you look at what's taken place, there are engravings there, and Evan's got them up of two ships. Now, what he also did is further on, he put up another set of diagrams of the Santa Maria, the Santa Isabel. And
that's his translation of what it meant.
Yeah, and what happens is you find that there's the diagrams. If you can put that one up, which you are now, Evan. Now go back to the one that he did. That's the diagrams of the three types of boats that were in operation in the 15th century in Spain. Now let's have a look at what we do if we can go back. There is exactly the same diagram of two of these types of boats.
And we've been there. You can actually see this.
Yeah.
It is worn.
But it's still there.
It's still there. On a sunnier day, it would have been easier. Yeah. But it was raining on us, actually. But, you can see
Harry's met us and took it and said, have you seen it? We said, no, we don't know where it is. Oh, everyone knows where it is. I said, well, we can't see it. So we walked on a flat golf course, and there in the middle of it all, there it was. Now, the trick is this. The story is there's not one Spanish group that went there. The ones that went to Port Curtis are not the same group as this. This is a different group of Spanish explorers. And the first time, Taquito, this is before this mob, wasn't it? Well, he got washed down there, didn't he?
He did. And that's actually Norman Lindsay's illustration of that taking place.
Well, I can tell you one thing about the illustration. It's quite good, but that is not Ben Buckley's. He got that wrong. He didn't go and see it out. We've been there, and I can tell you now, you can't walk down to the bottom like that. It's a little bit harder than that. You want to abseil down, maybe, and you might die. But there's a bit of a picture. It's a bit blurred. We'll see it properly, of the insignia plus the two boats. Now, what some of his critics said was, oh, well, yeah, I mean, that was done. But those boats, those two boats were probably done by an educated convict, wasn't it?
Oh, yes, an educated convict. There's plenty of them running around.
What convicts do in their spare time.
Fluent in Spanish.
Yeah. And here's the point. This educated convict was not only fluent in Spanish, which is possible, he was also fluent in the intricacy of the ship designs in the 15th century, or the 16th century, rather, in the 1500s, which is over 200 years, 250 years before any convict got to Australia. That convict was fully aware of all the details of the Spanish Armada and the different types of boats.
Here we go.
And he engraved them in there.
The industry of certain intelligent convicts is being accountable for things I render reasons for being Spanish.
That was a historical society.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. And the Royal Society declined to hear me. Mitchell got library declines to preserve, and the Australian Museum told me the few things that I say that relate to Spain are all rubbish. That's a very good informed opinion.
Very scientific.
Very scientific. It's rubbish. Or it was done by convicts, or it could have been done by a rogue academic, couldn't it? Here's the point, Bud Evan. Knowing it's so exposed on the headland and anyone can see you there, what if it was Hargraves who did this up or someone else who made it up? Why did they do it? Were they going to get notoriety or money? No. Why would you do it? I can tell you what would happen if you did do it. And you would say you were Hargraves doing it just to make it all up. And if he was sprung doing it, he'd lose his reputation, he'd lose his standing, and he'd lose the fact that he was on the $10, $20 note for 28 years and then thrown off. Why was he thrown off? Well, if you read the article, you'll find out about that. Yeah. But that's not all that's there.
No.
We went and now analysed two more artifacts, metal artifacts that were found in Australia. And there's a lot of things about them, and I suggest we'll talk about that on the day. But the most important discovery was these two artifacts are number 5 and number 6 of the artifacts we're in contact with or have, that had readouts, metallic readouts that were not complete. And I found that really interesting. We've had metallic readouts of objects where 44% is not identified on the periodic table, where 24% is not identified on the periodic table. And we had a couple of minor ones. Well, these two, one was about 0.8%, one was about 0.2%, were not identified on the periodic table, which means number 5 and 6. We now have 6 artifacts that are made of metal that were found in Australia, where until Cook came, there was supposed to be no metal. And some of these objects have been found meters beneath the surface, so I don't know how that came about. And these artifacts go back to that same old story we keep getting every time we look at archaeology in Australia, where whether it's 42%, 24%, or point something of a percent, there are elements within all of these objects analysed through universities and machines that cost 6 figures, and there's only 2 of them in this country, aren't they? Yeah. That measure to 2 decimal points the amount of different types of metal inside. And we've had readouts both through chemistry and electronics that have identified gaps where there is a metal there they can't analyse and do not recognise. So we're going to be talking about that. And then to finish this off, we're going to have an interview with Mesraf again, and we're going to talk about our distant past. I want to do an historical overview to find out when we started here, who else has been here, and for how long. And I've got a strong suspicion that all of the answers will not be the same as the ones that the Australian Museum, the Historical Society, and the people who say that Hargraves' work is rubbish. They won't agree with this too, and they'll call our work rubbish, won't they, Evan?
Maybe worse.
Maybe, or maybe they'll do what they normally do, which is to say nothing. That's normally the best thing they do. They
just
ignore us.
head in sand, ignore that it's going on.
Oh yes. Well, I did actually. The end of my whole that article I've just finished. I did finish by making an analogy between what an ostrich does when they're uncomfortable and what these academics do when they're uncomfortable. They both stick their head in the same hole, don't they?
Pretty much.
Except the ostriches are slightly smarter because after a while they realise it doesn't work when the lion eats them. These guys, it doesn't happen.
They just keep doing it.
Yeah, they just keep doing it. They've got no reason not to. They've been doing it for so damn long now. It doesn't matter, does it? It's the standard approach. I love the fact that one person said it was an educated convict, but didn't give us the name of the convict, did they? No, they didn't do that because they never do. Yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, we would invite you to join us. As before, it's free for a couple of days before we put it onto our website. And for those who want to watch all 39 of the chapters and want to watch them a second time, easy to do, but you will have to become a member. And it's not that much a month. And it certainly helps us wandering around the countryside, going down to see things in Bondi. Yeah, and we've got some stuff in the North Shore we're going to talk about next. And we went down to do that. And we're going to go down to Tasmania soon to do some work there with some people have asked us, some elders have asked us to go down there. Well, that costs money to get to.
Oh, yeah,
and I can tell you, the Australian Museum and the universities don't fund us, do they?
No, they don't. And we've got what? How many books coming
Oh,
out?
1, 2, 3.
3.
Yeah. One's coming out. I'm going over today and it will be coming out. The one about Kano is in the final stages of getting ready to go to the printer.
Just processing.
And Evan's working on a small book of about 1,200 pages, which he's nearly finished. I can't understand why it took him so long. Yeah. Well, that was an issue, wasn't it?
Actually, this article and what we talk about on the weekend is actually a part of what I'm working on.
Oh, yeah, it is.
That big book. Yeah.
You took that, some of those quotes out of that. What we put in now.
It's a part of a chapter. I think it's chapter 22.
And what I can tell you about Hargraves is he was a brilliant academic. He did come up with the idea of flying in the air before.
Here we go. I'll read out what my little summary of who he is and what he did. He was a pioneering engineer, explorer, and astronomer. He was the assistant astronomical observer at Sydney Observatory, an inventor, and for some time a Royal Society of New South Wales member.
That was before he made that discovery.
A prolific inventor, three notable aeronautical inventions, developments being carved aerofoils, box kites, and rotary engines. But he was quite modest.
Yeah.
He didn't
paint his ideas. And tell him why.
He just wanted knowledge to progress. And so his contribution to flight is huge.
Undeniable according to this. It's fundamental and he didn't patent anything because he just wanted it shared. So he sounds like a dodgy character. I can see why the Royal Society of New South Wales, Australian Museum and others attacked him and said it was rubbish. Because obviously all he's caring about is making money out of it, isn't he, Evan? He didn't make a cent out of all his inventions because he wanted the public to have it. That's the sort of person you're dealing with. So, ladies and gentlemen, join us on the weekend. And remember this, if you can't join us on the weekend, and most can't, you have a couple of days to watch it. You can watch it in bits, watch some of it then, and then come and watch some later. We don't expect everyone to sit there for 4 or 5 hours and watch the whole thing, but if you want to, you can. And if you want to watch some of it then and watch it later, you can do that too. So I invite you to come along and join us, and we'll see you on Sunday.
See you on Sunday or Saturday if you're in
North
America, or middle of the night if you're in
London.
London.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you want to put it on some other time for sure. Okay then. Thank you so much. Bye. Okay, Evan.